when you believe that science can measure accurately, you know, I feel the same way sometimes. I just don't express it quite as much. Very good. Thank you for letting us all express ourselves through you. We'll be back. And science. And science tells us, through their measurements, that there's 95% of this universe that is undetectable through our senses. Two-thirds of which is dark energy, and one-third of which is dark matter. And what we yogis have known for thousands of years is that all dark matter needs in order to be manifest is light. Dark matter plus light equals manifestation. So what dark matter is, and Yogi Bhajan described this even long before they were certain there were black holes. He was saying, there are these vacuum cleaners in the cosmos that suck up and then recharge and re-enter. And when it re-enters as dark matter. So matter goes into, everything goes into a black hole. Time goes into a black hole. Space goes into a black hole. Everything gets disintegrated. It's a recycling. It's like you wear fleece. It was a plastic bottle. Those bags that you take to Whole Foods, those were plastic bottles. So there's some mechanism that takes that plastic bottle that's been used up and turns it into something new. For all this time, we've been developing this physical body. But the only reason we were developing this physical body as human beings is to create a body that had the capacity to demonstrate our consciousness. And once we could demonstrate our consciousness through a physical instrument, then to have the capacity to maintain that frequency of that higher consciousness. And you know, when you travel around as much as we do, you see so many human beings that have no clue and are not even close to having a clue. So you also are curious, why is that? Why do I have a clue and no one, and so few do? And then you also read the ancient texts and you find that literally, there's only 0.3% of the world's population. 3.3% are reachable and teachable, but only 0.3% of the world's population at any given time during a Kali Yuga are actually going to be able to have a clue. So if you think about that ratio, that's 1 in 300. So that means, and they're not equally distributed. So when you're looking around the world, except for in a room like this, it's like, 70 and 70. But when you're in the world at large, you're either, at best, you're 1 in 300. And oftentimes you're 1 in 1,000. And so that means that you're surrounded by ignorance, and that it's not ignorance as a despicable term or as a derogatory term. It's just ones who have not found the capacity to observe. They don't observe what is, they ignore what is. That's what ignorance is. Because they have not been trained or entrained to be able to use their mechanism, to use their instrument to observe. So what we do in life is we get all wound up in, how do I earn a living? And everything that we have going for us in the world at large is based on that 99.7% of the world's needs, not your needs. And so when you look around and you say, okay, well that makes me feel better, but it doesn't make me feel good. In that, I now understand why I'm surrounded by ignorance, because it's planned that way. You can't ask a seedling to be a big tree. You have to wait for it to grow through its process. You can't ask ignorance to be aware. And by yelling at ignorance, you're definitely not going to make it more aware. Or by criticizing ignorance, you're not going to make it more aware. We have to understand, Yogi Bhajan once said, the worst form, he didn't say the worst form, he said a very bad form of governance is democracy. Because in fact, in the Kali Yuga, democracy is mob rule. Because if you have 99.7% of humanity in ignorance, and that's voting, it's going to vote in some very unusual things. And we are going to experience that over the next decades. Particularly here in America, where there's a collection, sort of like the world's collection. We're a little bit like the eddy in a river. The eddy in a river is that little thing that happens on the edge of the river. America is a little bit like the eddy in a river. There's the most oxygen in that area. So you've got this incredible enthusiasm and vigor and invigorating energy. But you also have all the styrofoam cups. You have all of the debris. And that is by design, because for every action there must be a reaction. So you must have an equal and opposite in every location. So the debris is not there for us to criticize. The debris is there for us to uplift. Now when you think about it, 95% of this cosmos is invisible to our sensory system. But what is not invisible to is our rasa, the rasayana, the extrasensory system. That sense that you have, that sense that you build, that sense that you build through your practice of yoga, your practice of Nam-Sim, mantra, your practice of vipassana, silence, your practice of pranayama. That you are reaching into your instrument, just like you reach into a musical instrument, and you're bringing the greatest harmony out of it. In order for you to see that which is unseen, because when you can see that which is unseen, you can make something of it. Miracles can happen. But what is really, and I say unfortunate in a non-judgmental way, what is really unfortunate is that before you're able to see the unseen, you see much more of the seen. When you increase your awareness, you increase your awareness of the debris. And that can do one of two things. It can dishearten you, or it can encourage you, which means to enhearten you. It's there as a stimulant, but a stimulant, if in too large of a dose, can depress you. For every action, there's a reaction. So our task as these Kundalini yogis is to walk that fine line of increasing our awareness without falling off the edge into our depression. Am I speaking to the right room?
Oh, yeah.
Because we all go through it. We're not talking, this is not me talking to you, this is we talking to us. Because we all go through it. So what are we going to do with the depression? Well, Yogi Bhajan said, when you're depressed, press back. Depression is a stimulant for you to uplift. For every crisis, evolution responds. When there is no crisis, evolution does nothing. So in order for us to evolve, we have to be increasing our awareness, increasing the awareness of the debris, getting depressed, and pressing back, and then starting all over again.